Hey everyone, welcome to MT Guitar. Today we're going to be looking at open triads and why they work so well on guitar. So this is an exciting topic. Open triads, they really work well on the guitar. Maybe I can use the other strings not for melodies, but for harmonies. Beautiful stuff. And they're not talked about a lot online or, in guitar education. Partially because they're a little bit sort of out of the norm. And I'll explain why. It's partly because we usually teach music theory from the piano perspective, and the piano loves these little grips, these triad grips that are really close, right? If I play G, B, D on a piano, we have the three bass strings of a guitar. We're not even using any treble strings in the guitar. Same thing with a C. If I just, it sounds nice, but if I just pinch fifth, fourth, third strings of a C chord, that's just like lesson one of piano right there. And that's great, but a lot of guitarists just sort of say, well, that's a triad and I'm done with that. I'm not going to really use that necessarily because I'm playing cooler stuff up and down the neck or on different strings. So we need to sort of take a step back and realize that the piano is the piano and we can use these triads, but the guitar is very different. So these open triads work really well on guitar, partially because the guitar has 6 strings. The piano is just one line, right? One dimension of notes with white and black keys. Whereas the guitar has 6 horizontal planes. And those strings are tuned a fourth apart, except for the G and B strings. So that means that we can spread out these voicings and kind of set them free and let them spread out, right? So we call these spread triads or open triads. Now I do have a video on this that you might want to check out. It's pretty encyclopedic. It kind of goes through all the open triads you might want to look at here. Now go to an A minor, back to a D major. That's very, good reference to go through that, learn these open triads. But this lesson is going to be a little different. We're going to be looking at 3 songs that specifically use voicings that can be seen through an open triad lens, and then even do a chord melody on a different song. So we're going to be looking at Paul McCartney, Dave Matthews, a little bit of Rolling Stones. So stay tuned for this whole lesson where we're going to be walking through some application. Along the way, I'll kind of give you tips and hints about how to use this in your own playing and how you can see music and the fretboard through a slightly different lens. So let's start right away. We're going to start with some Beatles and Paul McCartney here. If I take that first triad I mentioned, G, B, D, right? We know that a triad is 3 notes, tri, right? 3. And it's the first, third, and fifth of a key. So, sorry about the noise if you're hearing that. I think someone's doing some woodworking outside. Hopefully you can still hear this all right. G, B, D would be the first, third, and fifth notes of a G chord. Now, when we play a whole G chord, we're basically repeating those 3 notes. So, this is not like a closed triad lesson, but if you wanted to do closed triad, you would just keep going, and you'd find that on each 3 sets of strings we have triads, and then we kind of run out of triads, and then we have to go to the E shape to do the next ones. But again, don't want to get sidetracked on that. Let's say we want to say, well, this is a triad, G, B, D, first, third, and fifth notes of G. But it's a little bit unsatisfying by itself. It's kind of bassy, and we're not really using the whole guitar. So we're going to take this middle note, this B note. We're going to move it up an octave. Lucky for us, we have an open string, an open B note. So B goes to B. I keep the other 2 notes the same, G, D, B. Okay? It's actually the first 3 notes of a Bach cello suite number 1. And it goes somewhere from there. I'm not going to go into that. So that would be spreading the voices out. We have a root, fifth, third. So we skip the third, right? We go 1 to 5. 5 skips the 1 and goes up to 3. So we're skipping a note constantly. Now, perhaps more importantly than that even is the intervals. So we have a fifth and a 10th. Why a 10th? Well, because a third is now moved up an octave. And if we think about up an octave, we think of 1 to 8 is our G to G, right? 1 to 8. 9 would be an A, 10 would be a B. Now, here we go with our first song. Right? Blackbird. I've got a lesson on that if you want to learn that song. When Paul McCartney wrote this, he said that he was highly influenced by Bach at the time. So Bach used a lot of spread triads, open voicings, big intervals. And so he was looking at Bach's Paris, or School of Rock, if you've watched School of Rock with Jack Black. This is Bach and it rocks. So, great piece to learn, by the way, if you want to learn some sort of entry-level classical pieces. That's great, but where's the open triad? Well, if I want to understand this song on a deeper level and understand the chords that are going by, instead of just sort of memorizing where to put my fingers, I can add the middle note to put some context to this song. So instead of just those two strings, I add the D string. Now I've got an open triad. Now I don't want to change Blackbird, it's perfect the way it is, but if I just want to understand the song a little bit more deeply, I can understand that that's a G chord. When he goes here, this can be seen as an A minor chord. Instead of just going like that, I can add a middle voice, so that would be A minor, root, fifth, flat third, instead of a very somewhat unpleasant bass triad that we don't see used that often. I take that middle voice, move it up an octave. Now I have root, fifth, third instead of root, third, fifth. You see? So much better for guitar. On piano, this would be harder to play than this. This would be very easy on piano. On guitar, this is kind of annoying. This is much more natural. So open triads are meant for guitar. When we go here, in fact, we don't have to change the song at all to see this. This is just a open first inversion G triad. Normally we might go third, fifth, root. Again, kind of scrunched in, called a closed triad. We're going to move that D note up an octave. Now we have this chord, B, G, D, or third, root, fifth. As long as we skip a note each time, we're fulfilling the open triad requirement of third, skip the fifth, root, skip the third, fifth. It's more of a mouthful to say than to actually just play it, right? There it is. 2, mute, O, 3. G over B. So we have, okay? Again, I don't want to change the song, but now I can understand that A minor is just a passing chord to the G over B. So G, A minor, G over B. When we go here, you know, you could add the fifth. This is an open triad here. Root, fifth, third. So I've got just a A shape of a G chord. I mean, this is pretty basic stuff, right? This is just a bar chord, but I take only the root, fifth, and third. I talked about that in my other open triad video, that you can just forego bar chords if you want and just play like this. It's quite nice sounding, right? So check that out if you want like a little bit of a run through on that. But basically, this is a fully qualified G chord. So instead of just memorizing where to put our fingers on a song, we can understand the song more deeply. It keeps going. When he goes here, let me just play it first. A lot of notes. When I learned this in high school, I had no clue what was going on. Right? All those notes. So, hopefully by now you can start to guess some of this stuff. If I'm here, looks like a C, because it is. If I add the middle note, there's root, fifth, third. This one's a little tricky. What about this? Well, that's an A7. A sharp and a G, and we add the middle note, the A. So I go from here to here to see, not to play it in the song, but to just see how the song's working and to see, here's a nice A7 open triad. It's not even a traditional triad because it's a double spread triad. Skip the 5, we go from third to 1, skip the third and 5, and we go to flat 7. Whereas this would be more of a typical A spread triad. We make it dominant 7. Same thing here, D, B7. Okay, that's 6, mute, 4, mute, 5. Okay? I'll show you how to do this with a pick in a sec with Dave Matthews. E minor, again, changing the song, but understanding the song. So let me just pinch it so I don't confuse our ears. E minor, add the middle note. E flat. So now we know what this chord is. It's an E flat. D, A, 7, C, C minor. Now it's a G over B, A7, and I'm just adding the middle note each time. D7. It's actually kind of like actually it's a G sus4 over D. Back to G. Sorry. Kind of hard to play because I'm used to playing it the more standard way, of course. Here we go. C minor, G over B. Now it's just a nice thing to be able to understand the song. Okay. What about some more examples? Let's say I'm using a pick. Recognize this? We were all gathered. I think I have one of those chords wrong. I haven't learned this song recently. I played it a long time ago, but I know the first few chords of those are correct. But then when he ends each phrase, he goes, and then the chorus is, so why would you stand? So this is Trippin' Billy's. Now, here, again, we could just memorize the frets and be done with it. But really, what's going on? He's in the key of B minor, okay? So at B minor, we add the middle note to understand. This is coming from an E minor shape of B minor. And all he did were these 10th intervals. This is a minor 10th from B to D. We know that because we can go B to D, minor 3rd, take the D up an octave, and it's a 10th. Here's A. Nice A chord. We can add the 5th in. So just root and 3rd, root and 10th. We add the 5th in, and it's a full A chord. And then here is an interesting one. This is a D over F sharp open spread triad. So D over F sharp is pretty much already there for us because the 5th string's already usually muted. So we go 3rd, 5th, 3rd, skip the 5th, root, or 1, and then 5. Here's a G, and again we add the middle voice just for context. So instead of that, now again, I'm just doing this for my mind's eye, not for my actual playing. So that's the difference. Now, let's say I want to, okay, we're going to take a break. So we did some fingerstyle, we did some playing with a pick. Let's put the songs aside for a sec. And let's say I just want to mess around now, you know, and not even play a song. I just want to make some nice melodies. So let's say I know this open triad. So let's talk about inversions now. If I have an E shape of G, sorry about that wood sound. Right when I turned on the camera, it started, so I hope it's not distracting you too much. I guess it's a good day to do some woodwork outside. If I have a root position, sort of E shape here, I'm going to do the same thing. 1, 5, 3. I think you get that by now. What if I want to do an inversion? Well, we covered that in Blackbird. G over B. What about G over D, second inversion? I go to D, I skip the root, I go to the 3rd. I skip the 5, I go to the 1. See that? Beautiful chord. And I have second inversion G, all right? But it's a spread triad. So I have this nice thing here, and I want to do some melodies now. And G major pentatonic. So I can go to the 5 chord for this one. Because the second note of G, which is A, works really well over the 5 chord, which is D. So again, I could try to play a bar chord D, that's kind of cumbersome, or a closed triad. I'm not really in that style right now, I'm in a spread style. So this would be kind of a shock to the ear. Be like, what happened to the bass, right? So I'm going to do a spread triad by going here, that's the 5th, skip the 3rd of D, go to the root, skip the 5th, go to the 3rd. So that we're going backwards now. So I have, nice. Let's say I want to go up here, okay? So I have a 3rd, skip the root, 5, skip the third, 1, leaving me with this. So I have okay, now I go up here. I'm going to use the same thing I used for the 5 chord, which was here, up to a G. So I can repeat these open spread triads when I want. Okay? Kind of just compose that with you right now. It's like, just had a thought of going up the scale, harmonizing it, and this brings me to the next point. We can use the guitar up and down for scales, but when I teach that a lot of times the next step would be, let's get it moving horizontally, not just vertically, because vertically is kind of like you're stuck in one area. And we know that melodies move up and down the fretboard when we see great solos. So you want to start moving melodically this way and maybe using harmony up and down. So if I'm going horizontally, left to right, maybe I can use the other strings not for melodies, but for harmonies. Beautiful stuff. There's a C triad. It's just like the G triad, up 5 frets for the 4 chord. Here's the D shape of G, but in a spread triad, 1, 5, 3. That's the 5 chord. Right? Beautiful stuff. There's a 4 chord. Here's C. E shape goes to D shape. Isn't that beautiful? E shape of D, spread triad, second inversion. Here's a D, first inversion. Third root, fifth. So they just work for a guitar. The open triads are meant for guitar. We're not necessarily only meant to go like this, and then, no, it's kind of like it's too crunched up. For piano it works really well, but for guitar, maybe a little bit more spread out. We keep the bass. So I've just been having fun with this week. All right, next point I want to make. I kind of want to slowly blow your mind if possible. Let's say we've learned a triad shape. Let's start with the easy one, maybe the root position. The first one we did was sort of a G triad, but let's do it here in the E shape, all right? And I wanted to go up and harmonize the key. I know that it's 1, 4, 5 major, 2, 3, 6 minor. So 1 major, I go to 2 minor, and I flat the third. Root, 5, third, root, 5, third. Not gonna work. It's gotta be flat third. 3 minor, 4 major, 5 major, 6 minor. 7 diminished. So hard to play that on a not cutaway. Back to 1. Same thing here. Let's say I take a first inversion. Okay? Now open strings, clad it, but imagine my index finger on the open string here. That's major. 2 is minor. So if I know that the bass is the 3, instead of going like this, which should be everything up a whole step, I have to flat the 3. Instant minor. Now I can see the fretboard. 3 minor, 4 major. You see how I went from this to this. My third became major again. 5 chord major, 6 chord minor. See that? Right now the middle finger's next to the pinky. Now it'll be next to the index because that's minor. That's 6, 7 is diminished. Back to major. Next one. Here's second inversion major. 5, 3, 1. So where's the 3? That's going to be the one that switches. The 5 and 1 will stay the same. So I go to the 2 chord. This won't work because the 3 needs to be minor. So I can see the fretboard in a whole new way and see how major and minor evolve. Okay, now I was working on this last night and just to be honest, just having fun with open triads. They're very beautiful sounding, and I find a sort of a meditative pleasure in them. And I think I stumbled across, what was it? Ruby Tuesday. you know. So if I did a chord melody, goodbye, Ruby Tuesday, la la la. I don't even know if the key is G, but since I'm in the key of G, might as well. And then when he goes da 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 da, goes to an F chord. So this is sort of an F add 9. Da da, still I'm gonna miss you. Okay, so you can basically see how this is very useful, because now I can play the melody, Mick Jagger's melody, along with basically basic chords. If I just did this, it might be hard to capture the essence of the song, whereas if I go, I can play the melody now. So it's useful for chord melody too. So this wasn't meant as like an encyclopedia of all the chords. I've already done that in a different video with a study guide on the Patreon, which reminds me, go check out the Patreon and go to my open triad lesson where it's all written out. Watch that video as well. But this is just a way to get you going on having fun with seeing the guitar in a new way, trying out something different, understanding that songs like Blackbird or Tripping Billies. Another example is Lie in Our Graves, which again, it is a beautiful example of open triads. By the end of the song, there's that awesome breakdown. It's like, right? Dave Matthews, loves 10th intervals. Let's go through this. This is fun. Second half. So let's analyze that. That would be D, root position. Add the 5th for context. This is actually the 7 diminished chord. Here's the 6 relative minor, 4 to 5, G to A. So the 10th intervals are the outer voices of the open triad. We have root, 5th, 10th. We take out the 5th and we just have the 10th. And I don't want to change the song. This is how it's meant to be. But this would be E minor, if I wanted to know. B minor, it's a 6th chord, so from 2 to 6, 5, 1 chord inversion to 4. So it's used a lot. You can have fun with 10th intervals and then just fill in the 5th. Or if you're doing 1st or 2nd inversion, that's a minor 6th. Okay, not an interval lesson. But instead of a major 3rd, it has to equal 9. So we go 3 plus 6 equals 9. So that's a minor 6th. Changes from major to minor. Okay, kind of a confusing but really interesting aspect. And then this is a 10th. So here's a 10th. 2nd inversion would be, instead of a perfect 4th, it's a perfect 11th. But it's a 6th right here, so 6th and 11th. So the intervals are a different story, but just have fun with finding tenths using songs like Blackbird, and then learning my open triads from my other lesson or from this lesson, and making melodies. You could try a different key, let's say E major. A lot of great blues cliches in the key of E. Right? People love 10th intervals in a blues. So what is that, right? That's E, spread triad here, 6th, 5th, 3rd strings. And then when I go here, it's kind of a passing chord. It's basically a D over F sharp though. Passing chord, just a chromatic passing chord, to a 1st inversion E chord. So that's 3rd, 1, 5. Nice spread triad right here. A chord, same thing. That's a spread triad. No 3rd string. Now when I go up here, that's a B minor. Not even a B minor, it's an A7 with these passing notes. And then finally, we make it here. So that would be a nice spread triad. That's 3rd, root, 5th. So try them out and just go for that 10th interval. I think that does it. I just wanted to kind of go all over the place with how open triads are so great on guitar. And if you want a bit more of a step-by-step approach to learning them all, check out my other video. Join the Patreon if it works for you. At the very least, I hope you do check it out and see what's on there. And I really want to send a big thank you to all the patrons there. Thank you for subscribing, hitting the bell icon, hitting the thumbs up. And I hope you enjoyed this lesson. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks.